Hello, everybody, and welcome back to ListenABLE, our podcast where we talk to people living with or affected by disability. I play the dumb, able-bodied guy, as Dylan likes to describe
And
me.
I play the dumb disabled guy.
No, there you go.
There you go.
And together we created a podcast about it.
And
Still
to,
dumb.
to everybody that has been getting around the podcast, really appreciate it. A lot of people are sharing on their social media, which really helps us get out ListenABLE into the ears of more people. But I'm really excited because I actually know this person that's come on today. Not a personal, I've had some of my personal friends growing up, but somebody that I met a bit later in life who's doing some awesome work. And I'm going to steal a line of hers because it's a really interesting discussion that we're going to have. She wants to raise awareness for the everyday person with disability. And you might be like, what does that mean? And I think it's a really good thing to do because I'm not going to ruin it now. I'll let her talk about it, but it's a really interesting way of, I guess, changing the landscape for all people with disabilities.
All right, well, let's let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Beth. I'm 38. I'm from Queensland, and I work for the Department of Education as the Director of Student Wellbeing, and I have Diastrophic Dysplasia.
Okay, what is diastrophic dysplasia?
That's what a lot of doctors ask me as well before they jump onto their computer and Google it.
Yeah.
It's a genetic rare form of dwarfism. So no one else in my family has it, but my parents were both carriers. So it's a double recessive gene.
Mm-hmm.
And it means that I'm very short. So I never made a meter, which I was really disappointed about growing up.
Never made a meter? What, how tall are you then?
96 centimeters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was always like, surely I'll make it.
What about a wedge or, a heel or something?
Well, I also have what's lovingly called club foot.
No.
Okay.
So
Makes it hard.
I can't get away with a nice high heel, unfortunately.
Sorry, side note, I don't know how tall I am. There you go. I wouldn't know. Never done it.
Oh, in the chair?
No, like if I was, I can't stand up, but if I was stretched out, I don't know what I would be.
Doesn't it say on your driver's license?
No, I write NA or 160.
160.
I just make it up. I got no idea. And then some forms online, it's just interesting. People never thought of this. You know how if you don't fill in a category, sometimes it comes back, you forgot to fill out this. And it's always my height because I write NA and they go, NA's not a number. And I'm like, 160. There you go.
Have you ever had, Beth, on those sort of online forms where they just don't have the category that's less than a meter? It has to be 1 point something?
Yeah, I think people think it's an error. Yeah.
Yeah. You just write 2 meters. Stuff them.
So it's quite a name. I'm not going to get caught up on it, but diastrophic. I mean, who named?
Yeah, that's not a great name.
Yeah, it sounds dire.
It does.
It's very aggressive.
Yeah.
So it's a form of dwarfism there. I wasn't aware that there was multiple forms of dwarfism.
Yeah, so it's quite different from achondroplasia, which I think is the most common form of dwarfism. So my condition is, one of the main things is that you have different cartilage growth. So like the cartilage grows over parts of your bones. So I can't bend my fingers. I don't have any knuckles. And that's the case in multiple parts of my body. So I've got a narrow trachea. And lots of different parts of my body are different because of the cartilage growth. I also have these funny ears that doctors also love because they're like, when you play rugby and you get those cauliflower ears.
Like a UFC fighter.
Yeah. But I didn't fight. I just kept them.
Maybe on your side hustle. Can I ask, are we allowed to say dwarfism? Is dwarfism allowed to be said, or is it a person of short stature? Or can you educate us on the correct language? Because I get asked this a lot, and I've got a consulting company which you know about, Gets Good Access, Beth, where we do some stuff, and it's always one where I'm like, no, I don't know actually, and I do know, but I don't like speaking on behalf. So where do you sit with it?
It's a good question, and weirdly, I don't feel well placed to comment because I've never been part of a community of people who have dwarfism. So I'm not sure. I know that some people like to use short stature or little person, but I have never actually used those names for myself because my condition's quite rare.
Okay.
I just say I have a disability. So
there's a word starting with M that we don't use, correct? Is that right?
Oh yeah. That's a bad one.
Just for anyone who's listening, I still hear people say it.
Of course.
And you're like, no,
Yeah.
that one's in the bin. So now you know.
say it as well, but not intending,
Not intentionally. That's what I mean.
to be rude.
And-
they just are uneducated.
And what we're doing is educating people on this podcast.
Yep.
So yeah, put that one in the bin and put the couple of bricks on it so it can't get back out.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to be called that one.
Yeah, good.
I have been, but I don't want to be ever again.
Did you get called it through bullying or just through accidental?
No,
I guess-
just drunk people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ignorance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you work for the department, the Queensland government you were saying in caring?
Student wellbeing.
Yeah,
Student wellbeing. Okay.
Yes.
So can you explain to us what your role entails with that?
Yeah, well, I actually just got a promotion, which I start on Monday.
Yeah, you did.
Congratulations.
So I'll talk as though I'm already in that role.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's a director role. So I oversee a team that we write policy for the department that guides schools to support young people in Queensland state schools to support their mental health and wellbeing, and provide advice and support to schools about how to do that. So like during coronavirus, when everyone, obviously that was a really stressful time when it first started and kids were really worried and didn't know what's going on. That's just one example of time that we wrote kind of communication out to schools about how best to talk to young people about it and how to support them and make sure that they can get help if they need it.
This is across all kids at school, not just kids with disabilities, correct?
No, I actually don't work in the disability space. It's all students who are in state schools.
Yep.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your promotion. And
Thanks.
this might be a somewhat bold of uncomfortable question to ask because I'm not exactly how sure I should phrase it. But do you find the only example I could have in my able-bodied life up until my 32 years is that I know some people find it difficult to work for managers who are younger than them, and they can't find, they find it more difficult to respect that person within that role if they're younger than them. Have you ever had troubles as a director of a team with people judging you on your disability or struggling to work underneath you?
Great question, that.
Yeah, I think I've been really lucky. I think it's probably partly because so I have a background in psychology. I have a PhD in social psychology, and the people who work in the team are all invested in supporting young people in the area of mental health. So I think it's partly because of the type of people that I work for and that work in my team. And, I have really great leaders in my team who also are really empathic, compassionate people who want the best for young people, but also for the people that they work with as well. So I haven't, but who knows, maybe they harbour some issues that they've never told me about and are good at faking it.
Good.
But
Well,
I haven't had any trouble with the people who report to me.
That's great.
PhD makes you a doctor?
Yeah.
Why are we not calling you Dr. Beth?
I always forget.
Oh,
I use it when I fly.
You've got it.
Gosh.
Fly. Always.
Yeah. Always, right? Because people, Dylan, you probably know, but I use an electric wheelchair full time. And when I fly, I get treated like a non-existent person a lot of the time, and that I can't speak for myself and that I can't advocate for myself. So I stick the doctor on there so that it's on my ticket.
Right.
And it actually, I don't think this is a good thing. It's not the way the world should be, but it actually really helps.
Of
It means
course.
that people actually talk to me rather than assuming that the person I'm with is my carer.
Yeah.
And talking only to them.
Pre
Love
me flying every 3 days, which I do now, the most number one place where people would speak to the people next to me would be airports and
Yeah.
checking in. And they'd go, is he going to be okay? And the person next to me would be like, I've never met him before in my life. Every time. And they're like, what do you mean? I go, I don't know who that is. And I go, hello. And they're like, oh, how much? Honestly, it happens all the time, doesn't it, Beth?
Flying is probably, if I think about times when I feel the most disabled and the most not fitting into the way the world works, it's flying.
Because you lose your independence, right? They
Yeah.
take Beth and my wheelchair off us
Yeah.
to put under the plane. So we're at the mercy of the people helping us. And if those people, it's not their fault. If they haven't been educated or had disability awareness training or is awkward or a bad person, it's hard. You know what I mean? Isn't it? And it makes it tough. And you seem so, I guess, proud of your disability. Are you proud of your disability now? I'm just judging by, I'm asking you directly.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because, not trying to fangirl here, but this is literally my favorite podcast because it's the only podcast I've listened to every episode. And
Paid her to say that.
Even though obviously I'm disabled myself, I've learnt so much. And I guess it's made me reflect a lot because when I hear most of your guests come on, and I know, Dylan, you're really proud of your disability. And I guess sometimes I feel a bit uncomfortable because I don't know whether my answer is as straightforward.
Great. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
What is your answer?
I don't really know. I'm not ashamed, but and I'm proud of the things that I've done. But I guess I still feel blocked from things that I wish I could do, which, as you guys talk about with all your guests, it's not I wish I could walk all the time, or I wish I could go for a bike ride. It's that, the things like easily travel. I wish I could easily travel independently, or I wish I could, easily go to a gig and see something other than people's asses, which, is never quite the same.
Well, depends on who's in front of you, as I said.
That's true. But yeah, I guess I'm definitely not ashamed, but I don't think I've reached the point yet where I feel as comfortable in my own skin as I wish I did.
I just thought of an analogy right now for anyone who's able-bodied, right? Everyone's complaining that they can't travel at the moment because of COVID. Welcome to the lives of a lot of people with disabilities full-time.
Right.
Because, as you just said, you can't travel easily, barely at all. It's quite hard. And that's what everyone's complaining about at the moment, that their freedoms are taken away. That's what it's like sometimes when you have a disability. You know what I mean? And I think if you put it in a personal connection where you actually feel like you've got lived experience, this is actually a time where you can be like, oh, that is annoying. I'm annoyed at the moment. What can I do to try and fix it? Just a thought.
Yeah.
Do you, if we're not talking about, being proud necessarily or finding the right word to describe you and your disability, do you think that the stuff that you have had to overcome physically has bettered you as a person?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it makes you see the world in a really different way, and makes you think about other people's perspectives a lot more. I think that I'm good at, thinking about, well, why might this person be acting like this? And that's because I know for me, my mind is going 1,000 miles an hour, and that thinking of all the challenges that I have to overcome to get something done. So I think that probably, who knows what I would have been like if, I'd got a different genetic makeup. But I think that I'm probably a lot more patient and compassionate and empathic than I would have been.
And as I said, we know each other a little bit, and I know from your story that you definitely weren't proud of your disability when you were younger. You didn't even acknowledge it. How do you go about not acknowledging it when you've got quite a physical, obvious disability, electric wheelchair, and only 90 centimeters tall? How talk me through that
96.
process. Sorry, 90. No, but back when you was younger.
Come on.
Maybe 80.
Yeah,
you were 70 centimeters when you were a kid, I guess. I don't know. So talk me through that process. How did you go about that?
Yeah, I don't really know. It seems a bit preposterous in retrospect. But I think I just really concentrated on trying to be like everybody else. So it was just a really conscious effort to try and be, as smart as I could be, as friendly as I could be, as, patient, as
normal,
willing to help other people out as I could be, so that people would like me, and then I could try and pass as just like everybody else.
Was there an age with your growth rate that you were on par with all of the students, or were you always smaller?
No, always smaller.
Right.
Yeah, I think when I was born, I wasn't particularly, I was, 6 pounds something. But I don't know what that is in kilograms. I don't understand how they've swapped now, but anyway.
Angus just had a baby. That's...
I had a 6-pound baby. She's about 3.4 or something, 3.6.
Yeah. So I think when I was first born, I wasn't, obviously it was visibly obvious, but I wasn't as necessarily smaller. But definitely by the time I was at school, like all my school photos, I was definitely smaller than everybody else.
Right. Were you in an electric wheelchair back then too, or were you trying to walk around?
Yeah, no, from the time I started school, I was in an electric wheelchair. Before that...
You walk now? Can you walk now?
A little bit. Like I can, get in and out of the shower.
Okay.
And I could walk around my house if my chair was broken down. But it's not comfortable and I can't reach anything.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Well, that is
tough to reach the drinks and the plates.
Well, Well, I mean, we're going to obviously get into this discussion because you're in your kitchen and I'm sort of looking around behind you on our little Zoom meeting. So people will probably see this on socials on YouTube, but I can see that it looks to me like a regular
Nah,
height
there's a
kitchen.
hang on.
But on the left-hand side, there's something that's lower, I would presume. But you're
What else is lower? Have you noticed this? There's something else that's low, so Beth can use it.
I can't notice that in the background. What, the oven?
Would that be a microwave that's lower than normal,
Okay.
built in, and the oven?
Okay.
There you
Yeah.
go.
I'm starting to pick some stuff. But the range hood, for example,
Is up
still
high,
be up
and the
high.
fridge is pretty large.
Yeah, can't reach the range hood.
No.
Right.
And the fridge is a normal fridge that I can reach half of. Yeah, but you're right. There hasn't been a lot of modifications. I just put stuff in different spots.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's probably also partly just not getting around to it. I think that my mum has a heart attack when she watches me cook on the
Yeah.
gas top,
Well-
and I'm like standing on the seat of my chair, leaning over
that's
with
good
my
to
tiny
hear.
arms, trying
That's
not to.
And your fingers, they don't bend well, just in all sorts. You will be shocked how many people come over to my house and go, "What can I have a drink?" I go, "No worries." And where do they look for the cups? Up the top.
What's with
Every
that?
time. And they go, "Where are your cups?" And I go, "Not up the top." And they go, "Oh, I didn't think of that." It's without
under the
fail-
cutlery drawer.
Yeah, under the cutlery drawer. That's where mine are as well.
Yeah.
Very easy to hide Christmas presents from Dylan Alcott as his partner, though. Put it on the top bed.
And it's easy to find the ones I have for her
Yeah.
under the bed or in something real low. That's good stuff.
So is there any grand scheme to have a house that is going to be more able to your size? Would you want
bulk cash to do your kitchen? So
yeah, well, when I bought my place, I looked around a lot because most places I couldn't even, they were too small, too pokey. The doorways were too narrow. There was no space, galley kitchens where you can't turn around. Yeah. So this one was good in that it's all open. But yeah, I think that I will probably have to swap out the gas cooktop for an electric one. So
induction.
Look, you can get, so if you build a house from scratch, you can get hydraulic built Christmases kitchens that go up and down.
Oh, really?
Yep, you can do it now, but they are like it's like having your whole kitchen of hydraulics. It's unbelievable, and dream, but like crazy money, and to the point where NDIS and that probably won't even.
Yeah, I was going to say, will they sign off on that one?
I don't think they're going to sign off $100,000 hydraulic kitchen, but if they are, Dr. Beth O'Brien is where you go.
So what's something that, Beth, you might, in just your house, something that isn't obvious to me as an able-bodied person that I would never come across? I'm 6'2".
I got one.
What's one thing that I wouldn't understand in your house that is a change because of your height?
Everything goes, rather than going back, everything goes across. So everything that I use, whether it's a desk or a countertop or whatever, drawers even, because my arms are so short, I can't put things to the back. So it drives me bonkers when people come and visit and they push stuff away. I'm like, I can't reach it. Then I have to get my reaching stick and bring it forward and try not to smash it.
I was going to ask, you need a reaching stick or a little device, I guess.
Yeah, well, I remember listening to one of the episodes and you asked, I can't remember who it was, someone what the best piece of assistive technology that they have was. And for me, it's literally a piece of wood with a
hook on it. So you're holding it up right now. Yeah. You can check us out on YouTube. We'll put this on our socials too. So you're holding it up with a little hook. That's cool.
It's the best. It does everything. Yeah. It does light switches, opens door handles,
There's things that I would never have thought about. Light switches, door handles. I wouldn't have gone past the pantry. That makes total sense to not have Vegemite at the back.
I love it how we just said, what's the most important bit of assistive technology? Don't worry about my $20,000 electric wheelchair. It's this stick with a hook on it. I'd be done without that.
True. Other than, I must admit, the wheelchair comes first.
Well, another one would be that I struggle with epically, but you would struggle with more is wardrobe. So do you have how do you read, how do you hang your dresses? How do you hang stuff? You can't.
Yeah, it takes up lots more space in my, because again, I've got to have different ways of doing it so that it's all low. So, I've got one lower one in the wardrobe, but then I've also got an extra like hanging wardrobe at the end of my bed, which is low.
Okay.
So it's like there's clothes everywhere.
Yeah. So to every single person that's listening to this that comes to my house and say, geez, your room's messy with the clothes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We haven't got as much surface area to work with than you guys. All right?
That's true.
No.
True.
Can I? Oh, yeah.
No, go.
Oh, speaking of clothes, I know you are into your fashion and stuff, but I've always been interested. How do you go about shopping? Like, do you, I mean, your sizes, I guess, are from like the kids section, but how do you, like, what's options out there for you?
Yeah, it is a challenge. And I think it took a long time before I started to realize that I was wearing things only because they fit and that it wasn't necessarily because, like you said, Dylan, I always have loved fashion. But I think growing up, I just wore things that I could buy that fit me. And that they weren't necessarily my style. So as I've got older, I've got a lot more picky. I have a friend who actually is a really good seamstress and she makes me some clothes. But also I get a lot of alterations done. So I can buy stuff off the rack and then, get because I'm very narrow on the shoulders. So I often have to get the sleeves taken in so they're not so wide and obviously the sleeves taken up so that they're not so long. And yeah, so it's actually quite hard. And I definitely can't dress the way that I would choose to if I wasn't so small.
How do you go with customer service in retail? How do they go with if you walk into a store and for a clothing item, have you seen someone who's had some disability training in that time or somebody who knows how to work with you and your body?
No, not really. But I must say it's got a lot better. When I was younger, I feel like people kind of looked you up and down and be like, oh, what are you doing in this store? You don't fit our dimensions. Whereas I feel like, to be honest, on the whole now, like most people are friendly.
They want to try and help. Yeah, they might put their foot in it, but they have a crack these days, which is better. For sure.
And some of them will even be like, oh, go around the entire store trying to find things that they think will fit because they're like, oh, this one's cropped or this one's short sleeves. And then you're just in this dressing room going, oh my God, I'm stuck under all the clothes. But no, people are generally really helpful. But the thing about shops is that I can't reach anything independently.
Yeah.
So, it's up too high and then you go into the change room and they hang it on the stupid hangers, which are way too high. And then can't close the curtain. And so I rarely shop on my own because I'll just get into trouble.
What about when you're sifting through the kids' clothing section now like if you go to somewhere that has cool, stuff that might fit, is there just some bogus stuff with like SpongeBob on there and stuff?
Yeah. Or unicorns. So many unicorns for girls.
Okay.
I mean, this is a kid's top. So luckily, sometimes it's just plain and, it fits me and I don't have to get it altered, which just makes it easier. But yeah, you have to sift through a lot of crap to find something that doesn't make you look like you're a child.
That would be a pain in the ass. I just thought of that. That'd be really annoying.
Yeah, it is.
Going back to when you were wearing kids' outfits because you were a child, your parents both don't have the dwarfism, but you said that they both had the gene, the recessive gene. So have you traced that back to find out where it came from? Was there anyone in the lineage or heritage of yourself that has, dwarfism?
No, it's interesting you asked that because I was just listening to the most recent episode that's up.
Rhiannon Anderson.
Yeah, and she said that they'd traced it back and not found anyone with her form of, was it muscular dystrophy?
Yeah, Ulrich's.
But no, we never traced it back. But my family, we know a lot about our family, and I don't think anyone has ever had it, or if they did, maybe they didn't survive. I'm not sure. Yeah. But there's definitely no one else that we know of who's had it. So, because both of my parents would have been are carriers, but it's only because they're together. They were together that they produced me.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that anyone in either side of the family would have ever had it.
Now, would there have been? Do you have any brothers and sisters?
I have two half brothers and one stepbrother.
Right, and both are able-bodied or don't have any sort of...
No one else has any disabilities. I'm the only one.
So I just wonder when it comes down, do then your parents together decide not to have, full brother and sister blood because is it a guarantee that someone's going to have dwarfism or is it a
No, it would have been
chance?
a 1 in 4 chance.
Right.
So it would have been, there was 75% chance that you didn't have it, and 50% that you were a carrier but didn't have it, and then 25% chance that you did. Right. So for a number of reasons, they didn't have any more children. So I'm their only child. Cool. But my dad then went on to have another family.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, and I'm going deep into the depths of trying to remember things, and this might be bullshit, but your parents are proud of you, because I remember your dad came up to me and told me about you. Did I make that up?
You do have a good memory. That's my stepdad.
I'm proud of myself for that. I'm proud of myself. He came up to me at an event.
At the airport.
He goes, at the airport, that's right. And he goes, look, I don't want to be that guy. My daughter is a legend, and she's working in government, and she's had a bit of a problem sometimes with discrimination in the workplace. Am I on the right?
Yeah, not in my current workplace, but prior to that I had.
And he just wanted to say how proud he was of you and the work that I was doing. And he bloody loves you. Tell you what, he was showing photos of you and things like that. Now, how does it make you feel that your parents, especially, you were pretty sick as a kid, they're so proud of what you're doing these days?
Yeah, no, I feel really lucky. And I think, without the support of my family, my life would have been so much harder, because they never made me feel like there was things that I couldn't. I mean, obviously there were things I couldn't do. Like when I asked my mum to do ballet as a child, she was like, well, no, you're not going to do ballet.
But like me saying, can I play footy? They're like, no.
But no, I'm definitely lucky. And they were super supportive. And my stepdad and my mum are both academics. So I was lucky to have, really good role models of trying hard at school. And that was really important for me because obviously, not like you, Dylan, I'm not good at sport. So I didn't have something else to focus on. So for me, it was trying really hard at school and being a nerd.
Well, we'll get to that everyday person with a disability, which you've coined as one of the things you're really proud of. But if we're not allowed to talk about this, you tell me. But you did get discriminated in the workplace at your previous job. Can you tell us, you don't have to tell us where it was, but can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, I guess there were things that, it's not something that someone would go, oh my God, that's shocking, let's have a investigation into it. It was just more those subtle everyday things like, going to the bathroom and there wasn't really a proper wheelchair bathroom in close distance. So I had to go further afield to go to the bathroom. And because I'm small, all my organs are smaller and, I have a really, a lot of curvature in my spine. So I need to go to the bathroom more often than the average person. And they would kind of make jokes about it, like, oh, where's Beth? She must be at the bathroom. Ha ha ha. And, those things over time, I think, wear you down. And, even just when I went on a work trip once, there was no consideration for how the workplace could support me in that. And the people who I went with, I don't think that they were trying to be discriminatory or not supportive, but they just weren't supportive, and it put me in a situation where I was kind of left to fend for myself. And those things are really just about a bit more forward planning and thinking about, well, what do we need to do to support someone's needs that might not be the same as everybody else's?
I'm no expert, but I think it's called indirect discrimination, whereby rather than just not knowing what to do, you just do nothing and just leave someone out. That's discrimination because you're not being inclusive, especially in the workplace. Thanks for sharing that, because it's hard being vulnerable, you know what I mean? And I mean, I remember your dad told me, and we've spoken since, and did you think at times that you might actually not find a workplace where you felt included?
Yeah, definitely. And I actually found it really hard to get a job in the first place.
Okay.
So when I finished my PhD, I was like, okay, well, now it's good. I can get a job. I can actually earn some money.
So I'm just going to roll in wherever I want.
When it comes to the resume, ticking all the boxes.
Yeah, and I guess I was a bit naive because while I was a student, I did research assistant work at the university. I did some lecturing, I tutored, and all of those jobs, even though there were challenges, I didn't have any trouble acquiring the job. But then when I got out and I started looking for a job, you cut out so many just in what you read. You have to be able to drive, which is out for me. Or it's in a place where the building's not accessible, and obviously that's out. Or it's in a place where there's no accessible public transport, so that's out. So there's so many ones that you just have to cross off before you even go, okay, well, this is the small pool that's available to me. So yeah, I found it quite hard to get a job in the first place. And I spoke at the Disability Royal Commission about the barriers that people with disability face when trying to enter the airport workforce. And yeah, I think there's a lot that people would never think about, I guess. And, you know, even then when it comes to if you get an interview, there's no information about the access requirements or whether you need any support. The onus is always on you as the person with a disability to go, hey, hi, I've got a disability. Will I be able to get into the building? Is there a lift? Is there a bathroom? Will I be able to open the door? All of that kind of stuff. And I found that really draining.
And then do you know what reply that you get from that email? Because I've done it.
Job's hard.
Just no reply.
Yeah,
ghosted. Yeah, when they're like, oh, too hard.
If we're talking, Beth, about you know, the role that you felt discriminated in, do you think that yourself and other people with disability will probably put up with more than they should because they should feel, or you know, you do feel lucky to be employed? Do you think that you kind of go, oh, is it really worth going back into the workforce or trying to go back online to find a new job? And so you might put up with more than, I mean, more than zero is too much. But do you think that that was part of that experience for you as well?
Yeah, I think so. And just to, like you say, it's kind of multifaceted. It's, oh, do I want to go through all of that effort again to try and find something different? But also, you know, Dylan's good at quoting the research about people with disability in the workplace. You're more loyal as an employee as well often. So you kind of feel like, oh, well, there's good things about it, so I'll overlook those things. And also I've never been someone who felt very good at asserting what I needed either. It's only been the last couple of years that I've got a bit better at that. So I think because I grew up kind of just finding my own solution to problems, I was just like, okay, well, I can deal with this.
Yeah. Let's talk about that in particular line.
Everyday person. It says, Beth, you really want to raise awareness for the everyday person with a disability. So, you know, I know what you're kind of getting at, but from your own personal opinion, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, I guess, you know, I think you know this, Dylan, from what I've said in various platforms before. But
she's been on the project before, Angus, so she's actually lowered her level to come talk to us.
Or whatever. Only after you'd been on it like 12 times or something. So,
but everyone's sick of my voice. So exactly.
But I think, you know, it was when I started listening to you on Triple J. I've been listening to Triple J since I was a kid. And when you were on there, I just kind of, it changed my perspective a bit about normalizing disability and what that looks like. And because like everybody says, and it's becoming a cliche, I guess now, when you grow up, you don't see people who look like you. I never saw anyone who looked like me, literally. But not even people who had a disability at all, really. In the workplace, I didn't see it on TV. You know, it was only really if there was some tragic event or something, you know, that everyone could go, oh, that poor person, look what terrible thing happened to them. And so when I started listening to you be on the radio every now and again, and then more regularly, I was like, oh, this is cool, because you weren't, even though you talked about disability, you weren't only on there because of your disability. You were talking about music, you're talking about sport. And it made me, I guess it empowered me a little bit to think, oh, well, that's pretty cool. You know, maybe I don't have to just be one of those people who hides in the shadows a bit more. Maybe it's okay to be a bit more vocal about my disability and about what it means. But then I still felt like I didn't really fit in wanting to do that, because I thought, well, Dylan's famous and he's a sports star, and I guess it's funny, isn't it, even within, because people talk a lot about, you know, the disability community, and I guess it's something I didn't ever really feel a part of, which is partly my own doing. I didn't grow up with any other people in my life really who had a disability. But then when you start to think about, well, within the disability community, what do I really have to offer? So I think that, you know, people like you really paved the way in Australia, at least, for going, hey, let's think about people with a disability and what they face and how good they can be and how awesome they can be at stuff. And I don't want to be someone who talks about the negative things, but I think it's just sometimes when you're just an everyday person, I'm not famous, I'm not going to be a sports star, I'm not going to be a musician, I'm not going to be an actor, but it's still important to think about how society places value on lives like mine, which are never going to be something big, but they're still important, and they're still treated differently to your average person who is also not famous. I don't know if that makes sense.
Mhm. No, that's why we do this podcast, because, you know, we get a lot of, you know, people of all walks of life, some famous, some not, on this podcast, and that's the point of it. And you're so right. And look, I always say this: if you take away the fact that I have won a few Grand Slams and whatever, what am I? I'm just a person in a wheelchair like you, to be honest. But yes, that has been my platform to get me that breakthrough, to be able to communicate what I go through. You know what I mean? But also a platform to then take the piss out of myself, where people go, "Oh my God, that's funny." You can actually, they're normal, they date, they do all this stuff.
Yeah.
But you're right. Without tennis and basketball and having the ability to talk heaps and heaps of crap with Angus, would I be doing this? Oh, probably not. You know what I mean? So I'm lucky that I got given the platform to break through, but you are 100% right. We need more stories of people with disability being normal, being themselves, talking about relationships, talking about going to work, talking about getting dressed, talking about using a stick that has a hook on it, because it's interesting, but it also breaks down barriers when you hear examples of lived experience. And very beautiful way of saying that, the way that you just talked about it. Really, really lovely.
And I think it's super important as well. Able-bodied Angus over here is we get so many messages of people who now feel more comfortable around disability, which I think is maybe one of the most important impacts that, as the able-bodied guy, I can do. Like, I now know more about all of these various disabilities, and I feel more comfortable in the space of being able to have real conversations with people that you might be, you know, up until this podcast, I might have been frightened to approach you, and not to have a conversation with you about dwarfism, but to have a conversation with you about,
in general,
your PhD, or, you know, just I might find it really interesting to come and up and ask you a question in the street, as long as it's, you know,
tactful.
relevant and tactful.
And you ask what their name is first.
Of course. So for you and your disability, have you done all of the research on what it looks like for you with your life going forward physically? Do you know if you're going to have some sort of like
life expectancy, family, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. How's it looking for you?
Yeah, from what I can find, there's nothing really about decreased life expectancy if you kind of make it through the critical childhood period. I think there can be complications early on, and I know there were some for me with my breathing. But once you get past that, but also like all disabilities, it's a spectrum. I'm sure there's people who have more kind of severe implications from theirs than I do that may have a different life expectancy. And there's not much out there.
I stay off Google. Yeah, I'm sure I've got something, but I don't give a shit.
I understand where you're coming from as well, though, because it's like, you know, for you having dystrophic dysplasia, your story is this, but someone can have the same disability and their life they've been told they've got 10 years because of this. So we understand and just want to reiterate that this is your story with it as well, which is super important. And what about relationship wise for you? Is this a 1-bedroom apartment that we zoom you in on? What?
Yeah, it is. I did think, I think that despite, you know, not focusing on my disability a lot when I was younger in terms of the way I talked about it, I was quite naive, and I thought that as I got older, you know, I would meet those same milestones that all my friends have. I'd meet someone and get married and, you know, have children, but it hasn't worked out like that for me. So I went to a doctor quite a long time ago to find out about if I could have children, and the advice was that it wasn't impossible, but that it would be really challenging because I'm so small. And to be honest, I don't know whether I ever could have done it, just because I don't know how I'd keep my balance. Like once I stand up, I would just like, I have to be quite, I put a lot of effort into staying in shape, because for me, if I put any extra weight on, it just makes it really difficult to keep my balance and to be agile and to be able to stand up and reach things and stuff. So I won't have children of my own, and I have never met anyone who wants to have a life with me so far. So at the moment, it is a 1-bedroom apartment and it's just me.
Well, hit potential candidates up at Beth OB17 on all the social medias in case anyone is keen. It's just, you just said then you keep yourself in fit, you train. How do you go about training? What kind of stuff do you do?
Yeah, I'm really lucky to have grown up in a family where fitness was really important. So my mum always made sure that I was keeping fit growing up, usually through swimming.
Yep.
But as I got older, the swimming dropped off because I can't really do it on my own in terms of I can swim but not get in and out of the pool and put my goggles on and stuff like that. So about, I think 11 years ago, a girlfriend of mine said, oh, you should join a gym. And I said, oh, I don't think so. Gyms aren't places for people like me. And she's like, no, I know one down the road and it's friendly. And so after a lot of coaxing, I did. And I got a really amazing personal trainer who I worked with for about, I think, 8 years or so. And we used to box. It was quite hilarious. Strap these like gloves on to my hands, and they would take up pretty much 3/4 of my arm. But, otherwise, because I can't make a fist. So it just created enough padding in there that I didn't injure my hands. Mm-hmm. So we used to do a lot of boxing and some weights. And then he changed careers and I got another trainer, Andrew, who I've been working with for about 3 years. And he's amazing. He has figured out all of these weird and wacky exercises for us to do together. And, lots of resistance training, lots of weights. And yeah, it's really good. He pushes me as hard as I think he pushes his other clients, but just in a way that makes sure that I won't hurt myself.
Brilliant.
Bench press world record for a person with dwarfism is?
Oh yeah, it's huge, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like 200 kilos or something.
No, that's 200, ridiculous.
200. They weighed 30 odd kilos and they're benching 130.
130, yeah.
That's crazy. I think I had a PB for my lat pull down yesterday.
What was it?
Oh,
23.
That's good.
0.2 or something. Yeah.
Hang on, but that's way more than you. How much do you weigh?
I was going to say, Dylan, are you?
No, I weigh like 30 kilos.
Okay, yeah, but pulling your body weight. That's good.
Huge.
Okay. Well, next time we speak to you, 130.
I think I'll be crushed underneath.
I would dream of benching 130. I'm not even close to that.
Seriously.
That's it.
So what do you see for your future with disability and without? What do you see for, yourself with dwarfism in society? Are you seeing people? You said that you might have seen people change a little bit over the past couple of decades. What has been that thing that you've noticed about people's perception of you maybe on the street?
Yeah, I think it's just increased awareness, through things like this podcast and, Dylan's work and organizations, coming into workplaces and saying this is like Dylan's Get Skilled Access, saying this is how to make a more inclusive workplace. And, hopefully out of the Royal Commission, there's a lot of findings that are implemented as well that also make a huge change. I think the NDIS has made a lot of change as well, because, living with a disability is super expensive. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people realize that. It's not just about a wheelchair. It's about where you can buy a property, what kind of property you can buy, the type of, all the clothes alterations, getting shoes made.
I drop $200 a month just on medication to stay alive.
Yeah, well, see, I'm lucky I don't have that. So that's
people don't even know
expense.
that. They're like, what? And like, that's expensive, and if you don't have money, well then tough crap, you can't have it. You know what I mean? So yeah, people underestimate that.
And the changes that can happen in that space as well. I remember Danielle Spokes was a guest of ours and her son's medication went from $500 to $5,000 overnight to keep him alive. And she's like, how am I meant to afford this? Like, this is ridiculous.
I think the biggest thing as well, just going on from what you said, Beth, is there's so many programs and incredible people with lived experience with disability doing awesome stuff. Just got to keep funding it. People just have to put the money into the programs, government, corporate, invest, because it's worth investing in us because we give back. We're great workers, we're great people, we contribute. So that's the trick, isn't it? As long as we keep getting those opportunities to be able to do it, but when the opportunities are taken away, well, then you can't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Bowl of uncomfortable time. This is a question that we ask, a question that might make us feel uncomfortable, but...
as a fan of the podcast, you scared of this segment or not? Yeah,
super.
I can see your eyes just like kind of died, like I went wide. As soon as that's why I just went up.
This one comes from somebody who has admitted, which is interesting. I'm not going to say this person's name, but they actually came and told us that they had bullied somebody with dwarfism when they were in primary school, and they've worn it for the rest of their life. They can't go back and find that person. So they're coming from this point of, what can somebody do who has made a mistake, whether it comes into bullying of someone with a disability later on in life, or is it best left to just be bygones and bygones, and you wouldn't want to hear from that person
Good
again?
question.
That is a good question. I don't really know how it happened, but I was extremely fortunate that I wasn't bullied. So I can't think of a personal example of someone who I would think, well, what would I want them to do?
But you have been discriminated against pretty heavily. It's not.
Yeah, I have, but I never had that childhood bullying, which to be honest, I don't know how people come back from that. It must be so hard. And as a parent, to watch a child go through that must be awful. But I think just if we think about people who have done not the best job of being inclusive, I think it is good sometimes to reach out and to reflect on your own behavior and to say, hey, I was an asshole. And I've learned a lot since then. And I realized that it was more about me than it was about you, which is always the case with bullying. It's about the person who's the perpetrator, their insecurities or something that's going on for them, and they're taking it out on someone else. And maybe for that person that they did it towards, it would lift something in them and they wouldn't have to carry that sadness around with them anymore.
That PhD in social psychology has paid for itself.
Yeah,
great answer.
But I think also you should. I think for this person, a guy who did send that, I think you should also be prepared to have some harsh feedback come back at you and wear it because you probably deserve it.
Yeah.
But thank you very much to that person for that question.
guy
It was very specific to dwarfism as well.
Yeah, of the people that bullied me, it got brought up at a party once, and they were just like shocked. And then everyone at the party was like, "No, you 100% did that." And they were like, "What?" And I don't know if they were faking it, that they didn't understand. And then from then on, the relationship's been weird. But I've seen them recently, and I went up like, I'm always friendly now because I can see on their face how devastated they are, but they don't know the words to bring it up. So great advice that you did. Like, bring it up, talk about it, and you're both right.
Beth, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. I know that you said that you're
Beth
a fan of our podcast.
OB17, get her a date, get her out in Brisbane. She's kicking ass, all right?
We're big fans of yours as well.
Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks so much for talking to me.
Good on you, Beth. You're a legend.
Love it.